Hi, welcome to Real Estate with Brenda Kay, Halifax Real Estate. Thank you so much. Today we're really excited. We're going to talk about closing day adjustments with our guest, Blair McKinnon. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. Blair McKinnon from Heritage House Law. There's a lot of terms. We're going to talk today about closing day adjustments.
Yes.
I know when I first meet people and I'm going through this, they're going, but it's a lot to take on in that night. So can we talk about that today?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Okay.
Yes.
So explain what does closing day adjustments term mean? What is that?
The closing day adjustments mean the amount of money that we need to get from the client to buy the property and pay all of the closing costs. And they bring it to us. We get the mortgage money from the mortgage company, and they bring in the balance of their down payment and the closing cost to us. And usually we will do it before the closing day.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Then everything's ready to go.
Yes.
So some of the things we're going to talk about, what makes up that besides, like you just said, 5% or 10%,
Yes.
whatever you're putting down. You have your deed transfer tax. So let's tell
Yes.
everyone about that.
Deed transfer tax, it's a municipal tax. People hate deed
I-
transfer tax. Oh, if it's a mini home, there's no deed transfer tax. So,
Yeah.
But if it's, as you know, if it's a real estate residential property, there is
Yes.
deed transfer tax. In HRM, it is 1.5% of the purchase price.
Mhm.
So if you're paying $300,000 for the house, it's $4,500, and we can't record your deed until we pay the deed transfer tax.
Yeah.
So it has to be paid
Yeah.
at the time, because as you know, we have to record your deed.
That's right.
And different counties have different amounts. For example, if you're in Kings County, there is no deed transfer tax.
Yeah.
In different towns and different municipalities will have different amounts.
Yeah.
1.5 seems to be pretty standard. 1% is
Is
also
there.
a number that's out there.
And this, when you think back, and maybe I'm wrong, but I always assumed the deed transfer tax came from the municipal government's actually employing people years ago to sit there and type all these things and store them or
And
register
they
them.
don't do anything.
Oh.
Brenda, we fill it.
Okay.
Brenda, we fill in all the forms. We collect the money and we pay it. They don't do anything.
Oh, okay.
They don't even send us a receipt.
They don't have anybody that's in
No.
an office somewhere
No.
recording all this and putting it in their
No.
government database.
No, we
Oh.
pay it all. I don't know what to do with it when they get it.
Yes.
But all of the work, the deed transfer tax forms, the collecting, the
Mhm.
remitting, the paying, everything,
Yeah.
we do it all.
Yeah. And then when it gets to the city, whatever they need to do,
Whatever they need to do.
and that's what I always thought they were paying them for. And now that it's in the age of computer, we're still paying the same amount.
Yes, we
When
are.
it wasn't the age of computer, so that didn't
No,
go.
they're not getting paid for doing anything at all with the transaction.
Just collecting the tax.
It's a pure tax, and
Yeah.
and they do anything for it.
Yeah. Yeah. Not intended to be directed at anyone specific, by the way.
No,
In the government, we all pay tax. Fuel adjustment.
yes, as you know, if it's heated with oil, the normal adjustment now would be about $850, $900. We now adjust for an 85% fill, because as you know, tanks are also filled.
I was going to ask you. Yeah.
Yes. There was always this big discussion before, Brenda, among lawyers. Well, it's not really 909 liters because it's not totally full, and the oil company tells us it's only this. So
Yeah.
we have a lawyers association of lawyers who do a lot of real estate, and everybody agreed we were going to adjust for 85%,
Mhm.
which we do now,
Okay.
and that is the standard. We get the price the first of the week, so whatever you pay, we do the adjustment on the first.
Okay, so that's how you because that was one of my questions there, because the value of oil goes up and down,
Yeah.
but whatever the seller tops it up. And was this always done, Blair, or years ago was it whatever was left you paid for?
Yeah, no, it was pretty well always done, because
Okay.
to try to adjust for a part tank is really
Yeah.
difficult, because if you look at the gauge, well, how do you know the gauge is accurate,
Mhm.
and is it a half full or is it not half full?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
now is it either you adjust for a full tank or we don't adjust.
Okay.
Because you get into too many discussions
Yeah.
on the closing day.
Oh,
or whatever.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the market value is what the seller has the last top up the seller has.
Whatever,
That's what they're
whatever,
charged.
whatever they provided to us, that's
Okay.
that's what we will adjust.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Legal fees.
Legal fees, our fee on a purchase is $825.
Mm-hmm.
And that is for everything that we do. Like, we won't charge you for preparing this, or looking at this, or searching this. So it's just a flat fee of $825 plus HST. And on a sale, it's $625.
Yeah.
And that will be for everything we do. We don't charge extra for anything, for
Right.
anything else. Now, there are occasions, Brenda, if somebody is buying a property and they're paying cash and it's vacant land, then we will adjust our fee probably
Mhm.
from $825 to $650,
Mhm.
and adjust a sale if it's a straight sale, probably to
It's not as,
$450.
yeah. What about fees and disbursements? Cause I always,
Yeah, disbursements that is just money that we pay out of our pocket.
That's right, yeah.
For example, when we have to send couriers around the city, plus we have to get a tax certificate, all of those things. Disbursements are just money we pay out of our
Mhm.
pocket.
just collecting your expenses
Collecting
essentially.
expenses, yes.
Yeah.
And the other disbursement that's always there are recording fees, and
Mhm.
recording fees at the registry, I'm quite proud of this, by the way, they used to do it on a percentage, and it was, used to give it $85.19, and I was on this service committee with Nova Scotia Service, and said, why didn't you just round it off?
Mhm.
Well, they had a reason why, but anyway, they finally agreed, and they rounded off now, and so $100 is what it is costing you to
Okay.
record the deed, and if you have a mortgage, it's $100, so
Mhm.
$200
Yeah.
in recording fees.
Yeah. And I always, that's what I say to my clients, I caution them, well, I mean, of course, all my clients, I do
Mhm.
refer to you, there are ones that have family lawyers or friends or whatever, and they'll say, well, so-and-so's only $600, but then they get their bill and they go, what's this? And that's the fees and disbursements where people don't realize that
Yeah.
they're gonna be paying that out.
Because sometimes then they get charged for search fees, and they get charged for preparing deed transfer tax
Mhm.
affidavits, and I think that's a bit unfair, because I think the client needs to know upfront globally, this is what I'm paying,
Yeah,
and there's nothing on top.
yeah,
And we
Yeah.
will, as I indicated in one of your previous shows, Brenda, we will sit down with the client and, like, well before the closing, we will go through draft adjustments with that client, so I can tell them within $100 what they're going to need on closing.
Yeah.
Because if you don't do that until the closing day, and all of a sudden they don't realize they
Oh.
need this money, it's a nightmare.
It'd be terrible. It'd be, I know, like, we have a pretty strong team, the finance
Yes,
person,
yes.
yourself and myself, that all work together, so anybody that comes through the Halifax Home Selling Group, you know, they meet with us and we go
Yeah.
over everything, and then they meet with our banker there, and she goes over absolutely
Yes.
everything, and then you do, so they get 3 doses
do.
of it, because like I said, that first time, it doesn't all sink in, especially for first time home buyers, it's just like, wham, there's just so much information.
Well, as you know, I know, Brenda, you can tell when you're explaining it to them,
Yes,
they find a fog over, and you know that they're not understanding
they're
it.
not comprehending what's going
Like, I've
on.
had chartered accountants, and they couldn't wrap their mind around tax adjustments, and because they just had a block.
Isn't that something?
So you have to be really patient with
Yeah.
them and understand this is their first time through it,
Mhm.
and it's information overload.
Yeah,
But I will say, credit to you and your team, is that when they come to see me and I talk about these terms, it's not a shock or a surprise.
yeah, they know them,
They know what the terms are. They may
Yeah.
not fully understand them, but they know
yeah,
what the terms are.
they've heard them. So speaking of tax, there's an adjustment made, so tell our viewers about that with
Okay,
the
well,
property tax.
Now, in HRM, as you know, taxes go from April 1st to March 31st. In April, you pay the first 6 months to the end of September. So if you closed halfway through that first 6-month cycle, and let's say the taxes are $2,400 a year, $200 a month. On June 30th, you have to reimburse the sellers for July, August, and September.
Because they've prepaid it.
Because they prepaid it. And then if you get closer to the end of September and the tax bills have been sent out, the bank is going to require us to collect the taxes from October 1st to the end of March of the following year. So you end up getting not only a tax bill for September, but also the next 6 months of tax. So you may end up having to pay 7 months of taxes. And that's why it's important for us to alert them up front that that's what they need
Yeah,
to do.
I say to mine, like, you need to budget that 600, so, you know, you're paying back the sellers what they paid for, but
That's
you
right.
also have to give the city what they need.
Yes,
Or, what happened to, one of my sons, wouldn't say which one, you know, I'd said the 6 months, make it 6 months, I said, cause what'll happen is you're gonna pay back them, there won't be enough when they come to collect. Oh, Mom, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Mom, you got some extra money this month?
yeah, I know.
Have that 6 months, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
because a lot of people don't understand, for example, if you close at the end of June and if you're paying monthly, your first mortgage payment is in arrears, so your first mortgage payment is due on August the 1st, and you've only collected 2 months of taxes, when in September you get a bill for 6 months.
Yes,
And guess what?
you don't have enough money.
You don't have enough money.
No, no.
So I try to explain that to people as well.
Yeah,
And,
Yeah.
and the most frequent comment I get is, well, the mortgage company's paying it, and you have to explain to them, well, they're only.
They have to collect it from you first.
Have to collect it.
Yeah, and that's the one tax that we have to pay actually before
Yes.
we're paying 6 months in
Yes,
advance.
In advance,
Yeah.
yes.
The last thing that is really critical on the day of close, and I really take my time to explain this to my buyers, is about the fire insurance. Don't just get me a letter that says, oh, we'll insure this house. I'll say it's your responsibility to make sure that that's at the lawyer's day of close.
Yeah,
So
and-
tell us about that.
And we do that as well.
Yes.
And at our initial appointment, I will go through, as I say, draft adjustments, and I will give the client a list of things they need to bring into the closing. Like a bank draft for $30,000, whatever. And also a binder letter from the insurance company. And as you say, well, they will pull out the letter saying, oh, well, here's our letter of insurability, and I
Yeah.
can explain to them, no, I
Yeah.
need a binder
A
letter.
binder letter.
And
Tell
we-
us the difference. So
The
one
bi-
is what we get under conditions.
Yeah, one is saying that they will insure you, the
Okay,
other one, I need to say that you are insured.
right,
And it has to show the mortgage company in the loss payable.
okay,
And I have an information sheet that I will give to the client to take with them, and I will put a check mark by everything they need to bring in.
mhm,
And I find insurance companies are very good because they understand what they need. So I'll say to the client, you go to your insurance company, tell them who your mortgage company
Mhm.
is, what their address is, and they're going to give you a binder letter, and
Mhm.
you're going to bring it to you with the,
Yeah.
to the closing.
yeah. You and I have never had an issue on this. You know, I let them know what they need, then you make sure that they know that. I ran into an insurance agent there a few weeks ago, and we got chatting, and she said one of the things that drives her crazy is clients calling her on like a closing day going, I need a binding letter, like, so, you know,
No, I let them know well in advance.
yeah,
But even when you do that, Brenda, I've had clients who have sat in my office for over an hour on the phone with the insurance company because they just forgot.
yeah,
They just forgot
to do it.
to do
Yeah.
it. And what do? You just have to be patient.
Yeah,
and-
yeah.
But it would be a good idea for mortgage brokers, real estate agents, lawyers, and insurance agents to get together and we talk about our
It's true.
worst nightmares and what we can do to help each other. That's
Yeah.
going to soften it. And
Yes.
I recognize that with insurance
Yeah.
companies because it's a last minute thing.
Yeah, yeah, so you're right. So what we do is 2 weeks prior to the close, our client care manager contacts our client and says, did you get this, and this?
And we do the same thing
Yeah.
at our initial appointment. I will actually give them a hard
Yeah.
copy of a checklist and say,
Yeah.
here are the things to do. And put it like, bring in your ID. Well, I get that at the initial
Mm-hmm.
appointment. Your insurance, your money,
Mhm.
and we set up a closing. And we'll actually set up a closing time then for them to come in and what they need
Yeah,
to bring in.
make the next appointment.
But they still come in, Brenda, and they say, oh, really? I didn't know you could be certified. But that's the beauty of doing it the day before the closing,
Yes.
because then we're not jammed on the closing.
That's right. So we'll explain that to the viewers here. You were just saying certified. You cannot bring in a personal check. It must be a bank draft or certified
A
check.
bank draft or certified check,
Yeah.
because if it's just a personal check, they'll put a 10-day hold on the check.
Yeah.
And we can't wait 10 days for it to.
Yes.
It has to
Yes.
happen
Yeah.
that day, yes.
Although once you and I had a little bit of a fraudster trying to get you to take a check like
Yes, he
that.
did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. and-
Yeah, he
and-
was quite a character.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know what? I just learned so much when you're here. I want to thank you so much, and we'd like to have you back again.
Happy to chat with you, Brenda.
Yes. If if there's any terms or anything about real estate that you're unsure of, or anything from today's show, Blair, they can reach out to you.
Yes, I can.
Absolutely. Give Blair's office a call. It's Heritage House Law in Octoloni if you have any questions about any of the things we talked about today. Subscribe to our channel. We're going to have all kinds of interesting content, anything and everything to do with real estate. Cheers.